urgent. Education Secretary condemns Boris as COVID rules force qualified teachers leave profession. Nadeem Zahawi has warned the spread of Omicron could bring disruption to schools until Easter. With schools experiencing a range of difficulties, including high levels of staff absence, as a result of the spread of the Omicron coronavirus variant, the Education Secretary has warned the disruption could last until the spring term and has called for qualified teachers who left the profession to return to help the nation cope through the crisis. He also urged everyone to get their booster jab. Schools have seen low attendance from teachers and pupils ahead of the winter break, and officials from the Department for Education admitted on Sunday they expect Omicron to bring about high levels of staff absence all the way throughout the spring term. The Omicron variant is expected to continue to cause increased staff absence levels in the spring term, and some local areas may struggle to find sufficient numbers of supply teachers available unless former staff come forward. In a desperate plea to tackle the challenges posed by the coronavirus pandemic to schools, Mr. Zahawi has urged former teachers who may have left the profession to pursue a different career to apply on the Get Into Teaching website as soon as possible, preferably before Christmas Eve, to join the workforce in the new year. Anyone who thinks they can help should get the process started now on the Get Into Teaching website, and everyone should get boosted now to help reduce the amount of disruption from the virus in the new year. To address the current emergency, it is now working with Teach First to bring those who trained as teachers but work in other jobs back into the country's classrooms. Dr. Nikki Kanoni, Medical Director of Primary Care for NHS England and NHS Improvement, joined the Education Secretary in his mission. "We're asking teachers to come forward during the school holidays to get protected before school starts again. We have got pop-ups, we've got mobile units, we're working with community and faith leaders to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to get this protection, so please come forward." It comes as the UK recorded more than 80,000 new daily cases for only the fourth time since the pandemic began. Patrick Vallance, the government's chief scientific advisor, told ministers over the weekend new restrictions should be introduced as soon as possible to avoid putting the NHS under too much pressure. Meanwhile, Health Secretary Sajid Javid said he could not rule out new restrictions. The BBC's Andrew Marr on Sunday. "There are no guarantees in this pandemic. If a circuit breaker, as the potential new round of guidelines has been labelled, is introduced, household mixing will be banned for 2 weeks. Boris Johnson has held off announcing further COVID restrictions now, although he has hinted that new measures may be announced shortly. In a statement after a cabinet meeting lasting at least 2 hours, he claimed that the arguments for and against further restrictions, interventions being forcefully demanded by government scientific advisers, were very, very finely balanced. One leading Tory rebel on this issue welcomed this as evidence that the PM was pushing back against lockdown fanatics. But Wes Streeting, the shadow health secretary, accused Johnson of being scared of his backbenchers. Streeting suggested the government should be following the example of the Labour administration in Cardiff, which has already announced that further restrictions will come into force in Wales after Christmas. Given that some government sources are hinting that further restrictions are likely after Christmas, possibly starting a week tomorrow, Johnson's claim that making an announcement now about new measures would be premature may seem disingenuous. His caution is undoubtedly influenced by the fact that some Tory MPs are vehemently opposed to further regulations. But even Labour, which has been demanding more clarity now, has indicated that it is not in favour of new restrictions on social mixing coming into force before Christmas, and so Johnson, like the opposition, may in part be also just making a judgment about what is acceptable to the public.